Welcome to Wednesday. It's Penn and CJ, a midweek podcast, episode 4, meaning we've been doing this for an entire month. CJ, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well. Anything fun happen down where you are?
Oh, you'll remember this because it happened up there as well. It snowed a couple days ago
Oh my god,
in April.
it did. Yeah.
That was uncomfortable because it was still warm out too. Well,
Remember
warmish.
remember a week ago when it snowed down here again and you were like, I wonder if this is what it's like to be in Florida.
Well, it's because mine didn't come till like 7 at night, and then it was still there early in the morning when I went to go get breakfast.
Yeah.
But like throughout the entire day, I kept getting pictures from you, from like Nate, from my family, going, there's too much snow up here, and I'm like, wow, it's like it was sunny outside, the grass was green, leaves on the trees. I was like, this must be what it's like in Florida.
Cool. I'm gonna have to check if my account's been hacked because I did not send a picture like that to anybody.
Oh, you mean from snow?
Yeah.
I was getting comments and pictures, Alex. Comments and pictures from everyone.
From everyone. Okay, I'm just giving you a hard time.
I can tell, and I don't appreciate it, but
2 episodes ago, I mentioned how I was unable to get my first dose of the Pfizer vaccine because I had gotten a tetanus shot there a couple of days prior. Um, but as of Thursday, I am vaccinated for my first dose. I have one shot of Daddy Fauci's juice all up in me, and I'm very excited about that. But here's something fun that happened there. Okay. For context, I have
I'm
a
not sure
long.
we want context, Alex.
Mm.
After the comments you've made, I'm not sure context is gonna help you any
No, no,
much.
no, no. It will. Don't worry.
Any
So I
much.
was
What
I
the
was
heck was
there.
that?
I was there waiting, playing Pokemon Go because it was Friendship Day, getting my collection bonus, uh,
Wow.
that sweet XP. But I was waiting to get my first dose of the vaccine, and I finally get in there, and she's like, "Which arm do you want it in?" And at first I'm like, I'll just throw it in my right arm because that's closer to her. But I was like, wait, no, I'm right arm dominant. If this ends up messing me up, I should probably have the good arm in commission. So I say, let's do my left arm instead. Now, for the context that I was going to provide before I got thrown off track by somebody,
You're welcome.
thank you. I have a long-winded history of mental illness. I'm better than I was, but back in like my freshman year of high school, I struggled a lot with self-harm. And there are marks on my left shoulder from that because that's where I did it so I could hide it easier. Just because I was always wearing a jacket or at least a t-shirt. Um, so she pulls up my left sleeve to give me to like disinfect it and give me the vaccine. And I guess, well, obviously she sees the marks. Now, this isn't the first time a medical professional has seen those marks, but when I'd gotten the tetanus shot, the nurse who did that came in, pulled up my sleeve, shot me in the arm with it, and walked back out. Not a word was said. It was over. And that was very pleasant because I do get a little self conscious about it. But this woman, this woman looks at it and says, "Do you cut yourself?"
And I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but just they're not on. I think it was Friday, Saturday-ish, but just it's not wrong as a medical professional to see something like that and to start inquiring
Right,
purely in order to make sure that the patient is all right.
right.
However, to come out in that manner in what sounds like a highly judgmental fashion, and just not particularly sensitive to the individual, that's not it's not professional. It's not really
Look, and that's like my biggest fear because I'm not against being open about my mental illness, but I'm against strangers being like, "Hey, you like stabbing yourself?" I'm like, we're past that, but don't base what I don't want that to be all you know about me because there's more to me than just the fact that I have struggled with my mental illness. But she just pulls up my sleeve, and obviously she has good intentions. Like she wasn't trying to be rude, she wasn't trying to be judgmental. But she's like,
right.
"Do you cut yourself?" And I'm like, "All right." First of all, I'm not I was a little pissed in the moment because I was like, "Lady, give me the vaccine and let me leave." I don't want to be in this room anymore, and it's entirely your fault. But yeah, just the fucking audacity to ask that to somebody. Just like, "Hey, I noticed that there are self-harm marks on your arm. Do you cut yourself?" First of all, you already know the answer to that question. You're like, "Yeah, I did. At the very least, I did." Like, frankly, you're just here to give me a vaccine. So even if I still did, my problem. Do your job. We got a line moving. We got a lot of Americans that need to get vaccinated. The fact that I am a little fucked up in the head is not something that you need to be concerning yourself with. But obviously, I know it's people's right to worry. I appreciate when people do express concern for my well-being. I just there's a better way to do it and express concern.
Mhm.
And even better than that, sometimes if you're just trying to move a line along like that, just shut up. Just shut up.
Well, one of the best things you can do, I would think, as a medical professional or medical individual who's taking the Hippocratic vow, just consecrated yourself to helping others is just as simple as make sure that they're in contact with either someone who can help them, or in Alex, in your with your case there, where at some point in contact with someone who could help them, because of the fact that frankly in that moment that's the best thing that you can do, because like you said, there's a line moving. It's You're not their doctor, you're not their health professional, so you can't really do much to inquire as to their status beyond, is there anything
Mhm.
I can do to help? But
Yeah. I don't know, man. I just yeah, I just wanted to talk about that for a bit. Um, let's follow that up with the other off-topic thing I wanted to talk about. Um, so I am a journalism student at a school, and one of my teachers commented on the audio quality that I have because I'm using a pretty decent USB mic. It doesn't sound terrible. It sounds pretty good in my opinion. Um, Not just because it's my luxurious voice. um, but so she asked me about it, and I talked to her a little bit about the podcast, and asked me to send it to her, and I forgot to until we were already 3 episodes deep. So after the last episode, I sent it to her. Um, and so she's thought about starting her own podcast, and I offered to help her with like the minimal like audio setup and recording stuff and editing.
mhm.
Um, and I even offered to throw together a logo for her because I made this one and it doesn't look bad, you know, it's minimal, but it's effective and I think it looks good. Um, but yeah, so shout out to her if she's listening. You know who you are. You teach me Com 203 communications theories, and I appreciate the fact that you tune in. So I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you in class when I see you. Um, anyway, yeah, I just wanted to give her a shout out because I appreciate her. So, here's to you.
You gotta get that soundboard away from you, man.
Absolutely not.
It's giving you
Um,
way too much power.
Absolutely it has. Because I can now, at will. So, anyways, you got any stories from down under?
Nope.
CJ lives in Australia, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
But
You can
yeah,
tell by my voice, the bored, monotone American English voice. I'm definitely.
you ever heard an Australian accent before? G'day, mate. Uh,
But no.
Hashtag
It,
not my
as it
president.
as it, oh boy, no. But as it turns out, being locked inside an apartment for months on end doing online coursework doesn't leave much room for like fun or entertaining stories, aside from like I saw the train yesterday.
Well,
So
I mean, that is pretty cool.
it's pretty cool, but it's also the only thing.
Was it
So
covered in kangaroos and tarantulas?
I'm gonna go with yes, because I don't feel like arguing against that.
No, I'm fairly certain you live in Australia. Where else did you move to?
uh, dear. I mean, I tried New Zealand, but the weather just wasn't right. Too cold, so
Plus, the Hobbit scares me a little bit. His feet, they're too hairy. The
oh
Hobbit,
dear.
more like, stop it.
That one was painful. Wow.
Woo! I'm killing it. Anyways, gonna take a quick swig of my water.
I don't know why people use the term swig. It does not sound pleasant. Like honest,
Swig.
uh, yeah, I'm sure.
What's the actual like definition of swig, I guess?
Take a look.
Let's take a look. Drink in large gulps.
Yep.
Gulping in itself is sometimes painful, so I can see why it might be unpleasant to swig something. Plus, not yeah, wait, no, we're using that word wrong, aren't we? To
What?
swig something is to drink in large gulps. To take a swig is, but when we say I'm gonna just take a quick, it's always like I'm gonna take a swig or I'm gonna take a quick swig of this water, and then you're just like done. That wasn't a large gulp. That was just me throwing some water in my mouth and swallowing it,
Mm-hmm.
like any other person who drinks anything. Though I do like to sometimes just inject the water straight into my veins.
That's not harmful.
I don't know what you mean.
Oh dear.
Okay, we're gonna start with one of your articles today. Um, so this is from Reuters, and it's U.S. Homeland Security to investigate domestic extremism in its ranks. This was published yesterday, as of recording this, and it was published by Ted Hessen and Mark Hosenball. It's a 2 minute read, apparently, which really feels like there should be more to that if this is about domestic extremism within the Department of Homeland Security. But now, CJ, I'm certain you've read more of this than I have, despite it being a short read, because I only got a hold of the article today. But why don't you give a little bit of context?
All right. So yeah, this is just on the larger scale response to the January 6th riots and just the I'll call it a wake-up call to a lot of the United States federal government that the people online talking about storming places or causing civil unrest isn't just a like joke thing like the Area 51 raid was, but following the January 6th riots, the Department of Homeland Security under the Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has begun just I guess additional screenings regarding domestic violent extremism or terrorism within their own ranks. So searching for people who are either former members connected with or whatever have you with groups, militia groups such as the Oath Keepers or Proud Boys, etc. They haven't really come out with what actually prompted the investigation aside from again contextually it can be presumed that it was due to the January 6th riots and other aspects of recent hate crimes and other violence occurring in America. um, I do think it's more of a not formality but it's not as maybe in depth as most people would think purely because of the fact that they already have a relatively intense screening process.
Yeah, I
So
the screening process is something I've read a little bit about, or heard a little bit about from my right-leaning family. Um, and they expressed concern naturally, and like part of me understood what they were saying, and another part of me was like, "You're just being extreme again." But the concern was, the screening process is going to just get to the point that if you vote for Republicans, you're not going to be allowed to work in the Department of Homeland Security, and then foreign policy will become exclusively leftist. Which now I'm generally more liberal on social policy and domestic policy, to some extent. I don't necessarily like how we deal with I've not liked how from the course of like 2008 to 2012 how we've handled Middle Eastern conflict. Um, I do like that we got Osama. You know, I don't think anybody's going to
mhm.
dispute that. Nah, dude.
People have. People
I
have.
wanted that to stretch out for like I wanted that to stretch out for a few more seasons. It was just getting interesting. What cave is he in next? Wait, no, he's not. Um, sorry.
No worries.
But yeah, to President Joe Biden called for funding to investigate any complaints of white supremacist beliefs at immigration enforcement agencies, which is good. We want to try and eliminate bias, and I do think we need to be a little bit more welcome in the melting pot with our immigration policy. Conservative immigration policy feels a little too extreme, while some of their concepts I don't disagree with. Like, definitely got to be more careful about giving immigrants rights like immediately. Um, we shouldn't turn them away when there's an opportunity to provide the same level of care for other people that we try to in terms of standards for ourselves.
Right, but at the same time, there is a legal process, so we shouldn't necessarily be turning them away, but at the same time, there is a process that must be observed, and on that as well, there are certain limits to the amount of individuals we can let in from any nation, not just, the southern border, but from any nation at any given time. That being because of the fact that they're limited resources, limited. There's a limitation. Nothing, everything's finite in terms of world resources, aside from renewable energy, and even that's shaky. So there is I you know I it's difficult because you need to it requires a certain level of where do we draw the line. And I think that's where a lot of the dispute comes from.
Right. Absolutely. Here's kind of where I think I draw the line. Mayorkas said in a statement on Monday that domestic violence extremism poses the most lethal and persistent terrorism-related threat to our country today. It's a threat. To compare it to terrorism, however, when it is violent, you know, I don't think I'd call the Black Lives Matter riots terrorism. You know, once you start breaking windows, obviously it's a riot. But is that terrorism?
Well, that comes down to also how do you define as terrorism? What using violence to inspire fear to create change would be my definition of terrorism. But at the same time, those riots weren't necessarily threatening people's lives or their you know s- just general it wasn't threatening the sanctity of life. So would you call it terrorism? Not so much. It was large scale civil unrest and rioting, but that I think that's one of the biggest problems is even in the federal government, terrorism is a term that's being thrown around quite a lot, and it is not exactly as broadly defined. Or it's defined more broadly than I think it should be
Mm.
at times.
Yeah,
But
I'm gonna bring this up, and I'm not going to try to portray myself as something I'm not. But I remember in my eighth grade U.S. history class, we had to write an essay, or at least a couple essays, for the final in that class, and I wrote one over why the Union were terrorists during the Civil War.
because of Sherman's march through Georgia.
Related to that, not so much as they started exercising extreme violence in a way that was attempting to inspire the change of abolition. Um, you know, by the definition of terrorism, the Union's actions were definitely terrorists trying to inspire change, whereas we're in our definition of patriotism, the South was definitely more patriotic. But that just goes to show how socially backwards we were back then. That our consistent definitions of terrorism and patriotism applied back inversely of what was socially correct and what should have been. Does that make any sense?
I can definitely interpret your argument. It's just I do disagree on a certain level.
What do you mean? Go ahead.
For one, in terms of patriotism, the South, most notably South Carolina, as being the first, seceded from the Union, left the United States of America, which is highly unpatriotic, in defense of rights that they did not necessarily have. And that was made clear in the 13th, 14th, and later 15th Amendments. Um, As far as terrorism goes, the Union did not employ force nor war tactics until after the South had seceded, and it was not for the cause of abolition at that point in time, but rather to maintain the integrity of the Union. They were not attempting to inspire fear through that. It was simply addressing a militaristic threat posed against them. It was honestly more of a defensive war at that point in time for the Union. Bear in mind, abolition wasn't one of the major goals of the Civil War until the Emancipation Proclamation, much later into the progression.
And um, I'd like to think 5 years later, I can definitely get behind that and understand how you are absolutely correct there.
Gotcha.
But 5 years ago, with my
That's
eighth
fair.
grade edgy head, I wrote an essay and I got an A, so meh. But yeah, no,
Oh
I'm
dear.
not saying that the Union was correct. Or not I wasn't I'm not saying that the Confederacy was correct in its actions. The Union definitely did what needed to be done. I definitely could
Mhm.
have that's one of the sentences I don't feel like I should be messing up.
You think? It's a it's
The
a pretty
Union was doing
significant.
good stuff, okay? Leave me alone. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm just
Um,
sitting over here like, "Oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good
Podcast
work
is
stuff."
over, guys. Oh no. Oh
We'd like to
no,
issue
no,
an
no.
official policy for an error. Oh dear.
Ooh.
Anyway,
No, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I knew the screening process for this kind of stuff is already pretty intense. I can to an extent understand the concern that the screening process might get so intense that um it just becomes that much more partisan in the Department of Homeland Security, and therefore not allowing for even public voting and democracy to influence the policy within that department. If you know what I'm trying to say there.
hmm well,
Um,
it's important to mitigate how much screening or how intense screening is permitted to be, simply because if as an individual, say a person from the South joined with the Oath Keepers for about a month, then realized what they were about and immediately left because they didn't want anything to do with that. And then later, because they saw the threats posed there, joined the Department of Homeland Security to try and combat that. But then in screening, it's revealed that they had been a member and they're kicked out for it. That's obviously,
yeah, context is necessary, but we oftentimes,
absolutely.
when screening, don't look for context.
hmm
But yeah, no, I understand. Is that an example of somebody, or is that just a hypothetical?
That's a hypothetical. I don't, yeah, that's a hypothetical. I'm not, I, I don't know people, so
Oh,
presume it's
fair enough.
hypothetical.
All right,
But
sure. Um, okay, let's talk about. Um, I have a question for you, CJ.
all right.
So you know, what a group of squid is called, right?
I knew at one point, but it's escaping me right now. What is it?
It's a pod of squid, just like a pod of dolphins.
Never mind, then I did know what it was and just didn't believe myself. Okay, go on.
You know that there's a murder of crows,
Crows, yep.
you know, a pack of wolves,
Gaggle of
um,
geese.
gaggle of geese. Yep. What would you call it if you had a group of black holes?
A group of what?
Black holes.
I want to go back to Earth. But other than that, a cluster.
Okay, there's a New York Times article that I found this past week that it poses that question. What do you call a bunch of black holes? A crush? A scream? That's the title of the article. A
Oh no.
crush or a scream? I'm curious about what the logic is behind that. So let's read more of the article.
I mean, the black hole would be crushed and the astronauts would be screaming.
But would
But
they be, considering all noise would be canceled?
well, that's fair.
So what do you call a black hole? Anything you want, the old joke goes, as long as you don't call it late for dinner. Black holes, after all, are nothing but hungry. That's the first paragraph. That's my kind of joke. I like that. I like that a lot. But what do you call a collection of black holes? The question has taken on urgency among astronomers inspired by the recent news of dozens of black holes buzzing around the center of a nearby cluster of stars. In the last few years, instruments like the LIGO, LIGO, and Virgo gravitational wave detectors have recorded space-time vibrations from the collision of black holes, making it clear beyond doubt that these monstrous concentrations of nothingness not only exist but are ubiquitous. Astronomers anticipate spotting a great number of these Einsteinian creatures when the next generation of gravitational wave antennas are deployed. What will they call them? So, like I asked you, there's a gaggle of geese, pods of whales, and murder of crows. What term would you do justice for the special nature of black holes? A mass, a colander, a screen, a colander, CJ? Y'all ever see a colander full of black holes?
Yeah, that one's not catching on.
Jocelyn Kelly Holly Bockelman, an astrophysicist at Vanderbilt University, and colleagues are developing an international project called the Interferometer Space Antenna, or LISA. Uh, you know, um, Popular character from hit show The Simpsons, Lisa, the space antenna. Um, that will be able to detect collisions between all sizes of black holes throughout the universe. She was trying to run a Zoom meeting of the group recently when one of the members said his daughter was wondering what you call a collective of black holes, and then the meeting fell apart with everyone trying to up one another. Up one another. With
Up
everyone
one,
trying to up one
up one
another.
another.
Not one up
Nice.
another, up
No,
one
no, no,
another.
no. This is
So this question that made it all the way to the New York Times was posed by an astrophysicist's daughter during a Zoom meeting over a laser interferometer space antenna.
interferometer. Because if the laser's not interfering, you know.
Um, when one of them, no, I'm sorry, this was just some one of the group members' daughters, not Holly Bockelman's.
Gotcha.
Each time I saw a suggestion, I had to stop and giggle like a loon, which egged us all on more, she says. The question was crowdsourced on Twitter recently as part of what NASA has become calling Black Hole Week, which is April 12th to 16th. Among the many candidates so far, a crush, a mosh pit, a silence, a speckle, a hive, an enigma, or favorite of mine for its connection to my youth, an Albert Hall of black holes.
I think my favorite out of that was a silence
Right,
because,
I liked that
like we
too.
talked about earlier, no sound in space. So
So, that's basically oh, and Holly Bockelman says her favorite was a void of black holes, or a
uh,
disaster of black holes.
my problem with void is that a black hole is in and of itself a void. So
Yeah, so a void of voids.
to be void of voids means that there is no void.
Yeah, because it's filled with voids.
Okay, now, oh dear, I'm starting to like this one now. No, we're not. No, we're not doing that.
NASA's Guide to Black Hole Safety, there's a YouTube video on here. I'm gonna link that and send it to you. Copy video URL. Go over and send this to your boy CJ. So let's watch this actually.
So you want to visit a black hole. You've packed your bags, you've updated your passport, and you're basically ready to jump on a spaceship and blast off. However, before you do that, I have just one piece of advice. Don't. Okay? If you really must go, I suppose you should at least know a few things about black holes before you leave. First, you should know exactly what a black hole is. A black hole is a physical object in space, just like everything else. It's made up of a tiny but massive point where gravity and density are infinite, a line beyond which everything, including light, can only fall into that tiny point, and sometimes some glowing stuff orbiting around it, and maybe some radiation. So basically, here is kinda bad, here is really bad, and here is safe. Also, black holes mostly come in two sizes. Don't ask me why, we still
Fun size and king size black
However,
holes.
a black hole is also not a lot of things. It is not a hole, a cosmic vacuum, a portal to another dimension populated by unicorns and space potatoes.
Oh, don't want it.
I dispute that.
If it's not a portal to another dimension populated by unicorns and potatoes, I don't want it. Anyway, so there's also a link here where I think we could vote for it. So I'm actually going to open up that New York Times article. And let's read some of these.
Oh no.
Sorting by newest, Frankie, as of 5 days ago, said an acne.
A what?
An acne.
Okay, nope.
13 people recommended that one. MC suggested an Azathoth, which is a Lovecraft thing apparently. A doily was another. An unknown. A plurality of singularities.
I
109
like that one.
recommend.
I like that one.
110 now. An implication. A cinnamon rolls rolling. A ghost. An obscuration or an obliteration. A hoggle. Cosmic Swiss cheese. A bleak. An acme. ACME. In honor of Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote.
Mm-hmm. Caught that one.
An encyclopedia, a Wikipedia, a Hawking. I kind of like that one. A rip roar. A, I would name them the galactic array of astronomical sinkholes or gash. A maw. Everlasting Einsteinian galaxy cobbler syndrome, says Mark from San Diego. And then following that with what do I win? With 4 recommendations.
Not much.
Sorry, Mark. A chasm. A Stygian, a Hawkingverse. The answer is gravitationally simple, says Carlos Santalia. Isaac or Newton. Call them Big Suck, says Joe W. I don't think he watched the black hole safety thing because they're not vacuums, according to that.
Nope.
Fabrics of black hole. A cacophony. Why? Why a
Doesn't make
cacophony?
noise.
Doesn't, yeah, it's devoid of noise. This guy has a lot of suggestions. An anchor, a grounding, a drain, a buzz, a quiver, a deepness, a bafflement, a quorum, a procrastination, a bloom.
Nope.
I think we're done here. I'm losing brain cells. They're all going into
Yeah.
the black hole. But yeah, so that was an article in the New York Times. I think they were having a slow news week,
Yeah.
which
I mean,
blows my mind given the world. But sure, I do appreciate the not so serious articles.
yeah, that part's nice.
Okay. I don't know why, but this kind of got my mind on something else that I really wanted to talk about. Something, this is an obscure opinion, and it's not going to be popular. So bear with me on this, CJ. But I want you to hear me out.
Nope, you just lost me.
Fair enough.
Go
Um,
on.
The Hungry Hungry Caterpillar sucks. It's terrible. I hate that book. One of the
Okay.
worst children's books of all time. And I'll gladly explain that to you just as soon as I finish reading all 22 pages. This is in reference to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting at
Oh no.
AOC about how she'll debate the Green New Deal, which she had been actively campaigning against, once she reads all 14 pages. This is a McSweeney's article.
Oh my
Just like the
gosh.
Pennywise one, and I found this one, and I just really wanted to talk about it. So I want to read this to you, CJ. As I have been saying for years, The Very Hungry Caterpillar is terrible, and no child should read it, and I will gladly explain why I think that just as soon as I finish reading all 22 pages of this picture book. You might be wondering how I can have an opinion on a book I haven't read yet. The answer is pretty simple. I don't like you, and you're the one who recommended the book to me, so I'm pretty sure it's a bad book. You might also ask why it's taken me this long to read a 22-page children's picture book. Well, I'll tell you. I've been too busy letting everyone know how much I hate The Very Hungry Caterpillar to have had time to read it. Also, it's 22 pages long. Aren't children's books supposed to be short? Who has time to read 22 pages of mostly illustration? Besides, just during any downtime I do end up having, I am fully occupied making it clear I despise another supposed children's classic, Make Way for Ducklings. Where are these ducklings going that's so important that I need to make way for them? Why don't they make way for themselves like real Americans? And as for the very hungry caterpillar, how hungry could this caterpillar even be? Caterpillars are so small, they barely need to eat anything. I bet I'm hungrier than this caterpillar. In fact, I'm actually really hungry right now. I have to delay reading this book as I need to eat lunch first. A friend of mine knows someone whose son read the book, and they told me that the caterpillar doesn't even finish any of its meals, that it simply eats a hole through one piece of food to the next. So who's to blame for the caterpillar's hunger? Clearly not whoever is supplying the food. I don't need to read the book to know that the caterpillar isn't doing itself any favors. In fact, I don't need to read a single page to explain why I hate the book. I can just tell you what I assume happens at the end. The caterpillar eventually eats everyone else's food, and the entire world starves to death, and life as we know it ceases to exist. Now, who would think that a book like that would be enjoyable for adults, never mind for children? I rest my case. Next, I'll explain why Where's Waldo is despicable and inappropriate just as soon as I find Waldo.
Oh dear. It's just
Oh my god. Oh, I love
look.
that, CJ. I love that.
Oh yeah, I can get behind resisting a piece of up and coming legislation if you disagree with what it contains. If you're going to tell them you'll debate with them about it as soon as you've read it, there's absolutely no reason to be engaging in hostilities because that
Exactly.
makes simply because that makes it look like you don't know what you're talking about.
The tweet was from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is, I'm glad I ran into you today at AOC to plan our debate about the Green New Deal. After I finish reading all 14 pages like we agreed, I'll schedule time for our debate.
See,
See,
that's the other problem is that like we agreed, I would think it would be I would hope it would be presumed that
you would read the thing that you're going to be campaigning against or for.
this isn't some freshman literature class where you can go on and spark notes
Mark notes the Green New Deal.
right and just go based off of that. Dude, these are the people elected to be leading our nation. That's
Oh
scary.
my
That is.
god, dude. The problem is it reminds me of some people from our high school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. That's so funny. Spark noting, like, legislature. Hey, yo, can I copy your notes?
It's like,
Sure, just change it up so it doesn't look the same.
oh my goodness, it's like, oh, it's like doing a spark notes on Gandhi and then doing, or not Gandhi, doing a presentation on Gandhi and spark noting what was British imperialism.
Okay,
G-
so today I'll be telling you about how if you don't want British people to be near you, you can just starve yourself.
Oh dear.
Oh no. Oh no, 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 no.
That won't cause problems.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is the kind of person who would walk up and hear one part of a conversation and immediately assume what they're talking about and then start giving her opinion despite her having supposed to have been there to begin with and already being having been a part of the conversation, but since she wasn't, she just has to jump in somewhere and make assumptions based on what she hears, but she wasn't listening to begin with even when she got there. So basically
See,
most of AP Lang.
No, see, my big thing being you can make an inference about, about law, about the Green New Deal. You can make an inference, especially as a lawmaker, about what it contains. And so having early signs of like, I don't necessarily support this, completely fine. Going on, I'm going to full on debate you because I disagree with everything within this, and not having read it, however, is a very bad way to present yourself, even going into an argument, because again, it makes you look uninformed and just generally unprepared.
Do you think she just really hates the color green? Do you think if this was like the purple New Deal, she'd be all about it? Or the blue New Deal? It's like, no, she hates it because it's a color green and she doesn't like cool colors. She's a fan of warm colors. So she's like, why can't this be the orange New Deal?
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Well, and then another thing I dislike just about this just goes for titling. I didn't like Operation Warp Speed because it sounded childish. I don't like the operation itself was fine. It was, increasing the speed of the pandemic. The pandemic cure was produced. No problem with that. I just don't like the naming, the terminology. Then you turn around, we've got the Green New Deal. We're talking. There was rumors a while back that when of a new New Deal. My thing being, back
the
when those
newest
like,
deal. Is this like the finale of the trilogy? Like
oh my
the
goodness, well,
Green Deal, the Green New Deal, the Green New Deal.
oh my goodness, we used to have our own, original names. Theodore Roosevelt came up with the Square Deal. You turn that around to FDR, he came out with the New Deal based off of that, but it was a different,
Oh, nope. Sorry, go ahead.
thank you, but it was based off of a New Deal. It was an iteration upon that last one. Both those names were in and of themselves original and thought up on their own. Now it seems we can't seem to get past using that terminology. I don't know. It's more of a nitpick for me because obviously, the policy itself is relevant. But when it comes down to the terminology used in naming these things, it either seems like, something out of a sci-fi comic book at one point and then out of a history textbook the next. And I've got no problem with calling back to history. We need to remember our history because otherwise we're going to repeat mistakes we made in the past. But it doesn't mean we can't, you can't look so far back into the past that you're not looking at how you can use it to improve the present and future.
I don't know what you mean, CJ. I really don't think we need to focus on the past. I think what we need to be focusing on is beating the Soviets to the moon. Um,
I can get behind that.
because if we don't, then we're gonna look like idiots.
Quick, someone give me a green screen. We can do this.
Hell yeah. Um, the man who directed the moon landing was such a perfectionist that he wanted to record on site.
Yes.
Um, Looping back to the McSweeney's article, though, I was thinking about it while we were talking. Um, so she, so obviously, Ellie Grober, the person who published this article, brings up a good point about the hungry caterpillar. It just eats one hole through the next and just keeps on chugging along, and it cannot be stopped. That makes me think that the very hungry caterpillar would make a wonderful candidate as the newest member of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Cut out there.
I think the hungry caterpillar should be the newest member of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate cast. The very hungry caterpillar chewing through the
Oh no.
competition. Sorry, that's the dumbest thing I've ever said. Okay, you want to talk about Ted Cruz?
All right, so this was on the highly reliable network of the Onion. So yeah, this is another joke article. But
No, this was on the New Onion. Sorry, they couldn't figure out
anyway.
they couldn't figure out a different name for it.
Anyway, let me go ahead and read through this
God
again.
damn
It's
it.
been a hot second, but it's just again going over Ted Cruz decries voting rights bill as shameless power grab by American people to control country, which is obviously in and of itself for the American people. We are in control of this company
Are you sure
or
about
country.
that? Are you sure about
Exactly,
that?
exactly. But why? The proposed legislation is nothing more than a brazen attempt by the calculating American people to seize Congress by electing representatives. Said Cruz, who warned the nation's 320 million residents would stop at nothing to carry out their sinister ploy. There's no way the U.S. population would be pushing for voting rights if it didn't mean that there was something to be gained. It's just,
What are you
and
playing at, American people?
and looking through this, it's hands down hilarious because it even echoes the general thought that we keep looking at the representatives and the House representatives, the senators, the president as the leaders, the ones with power, the ones who make change. But at the end of the day, again, it's the American people who are at least ideologically supposed to hold the control, hold the power, hold the influence over the government. Now, as far as whether or not that occurs nowadays, no, that's been completely botched by lobbyists and interest groups being
Right.
interfering on the Capitol. More to lobbyists than interest groups because that has to deal with finances.
Mm-hmm.
Point being, it's just an echo of the American people are, you know, we. This is something kind of interesting. Actually, I'm going to draw it to as well. A lot of people after the January 6th riot said that they felt that that was the closest we had ever come to losing democracy, or they hadn't realized how hard your at risk democracy would be. The problem being is that what you have to remember is that democracy, you have to be constantly vigilant because it's not a guaranteed thing. It can be lost very easily to corporations, to other people, to charismatic leaders. Even like the populist movement with Huey Long was like a relative threat to the democratic system, especially in like in the states in which he was prevalent. It's just it even goes to like the Georgia voting laws that have been passed recently that people are contending because of the fact that it's making voting more difficult. It just you have to be constantly vigilant of what's going on in government on irregardless of party, what lobbying group it is, or what corporation it is that's talking, even what they're saying. Be vigilant. Think about, be informed when you go to vote. Think about what's going to be the best outcome for yourself, for the nation as a whole. And you know how I get with politics. You
Yeah,
know
I
the
think
importance of the vote, but
I think it was a Mike Birbiglia bit that he did on one of his stand-up shows where he said that he thinks representatives should wear NASCAR jackets with all of the interest
yes.
groups and lobbyists that are promoting them and giving them money. And it's like, oh, what's it say on your jacket? Big oil. Oh, that explains a lot. All right, got it. Um, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
correct me if I'm
Like
wrong, but our representatives they're on federal payroll or are they on the state payroll?
I believe it's federal, but I'm not
Enough
certain on
said.
that. But yeah,
Well,
it's like the biggest problem is that these people are already being paid. They're not no one needs to rely on lobbyist groups to afford
mm-hmm.
things. The big problem there being where they ultimately rely on lobbyist parties for isn't necessarily personal wealth or the accumulation of personal check, which is what's commonly portrayed by the people, but more presently it's using that money for campaigning back in the home state, because if they don't take that lobbyist group, the opposition likely will, and they'll have access to resources and people that could have gone to the former candidate. So it's almost a form of preventing not loss of power, but just the lobbyist groups aren't going anywhere if they're just ignored by one candidate. They'll just offer resources to another and another until they get back in.
Right. It's like the NRA. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and let
NRA is
me
one of the bigger ones. Go ahead.
right. I'm not again. We discussed this. I think in the either
Mm-hmm.
the last one or the second one where we talked about how we're not against gun rights. We do believe in common sense gun laws. I don't think Marco Rubio should be the seventh most promoted um man with by the NRA as of 2016, following Parkland, and still be campaigning. I don't know. See, I feel like I can phrase that better. Stop taking money from the NRA. No, 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 no. You have the right, NRA, you have the right to exist. You have your beliefs, we have ours. Stop giving, stop taking the money. It makes sense that they would offer the money. Stop taking the money.
Hmm.
Ah, Jesus Christ. I
Well,
mean,
it's formal bribery, which is the problem.
formal
Obviously,
bribery.
it's
Right
not
up there with
illegal,
stupid shit like
but
self-plagiarism,
right, you know, it's
which is a totally different thing, but like I could yell about that for a while too, as a
oh
journalist and a
yeah,
writer,
or like
writing a lot of papers. Yeah.
conceptual plagiarism. You plagiarize the idea, the concept. There's a difference
Nothing's
between
original.
right. There's a difference between intellectual property and bringing up the same concept as somebody else in a formal paper.
Mhm. Did
Like,
you copyright advertising and journalism? I don't think you did. I didn't either. So I can use my own work. I can use my own work if I'm writing more than one paper about the topic. I had to check that a concept synthesis I wrote for my final paper in Com 203 that I could copy and paste it because I was afraid that I might be self-plagiarizing. That's the dumbest shit. And that just might be me being an idiot, but God,
well,
no,
where
you
my
know
thing
what?
comes from is obviously plagiarism is an issue on the
Absolutely.
on the academic and institutional level because of the fact that people are looking for that shortcut, the minimal work for maximum output, which doesn't work. For the record, you get it out what you put in. But point being, like I can almost understand caution, like having a cautionary approach towards plagiarism as a journalist, just because that's going to be highly prevalent in your field. But
Absolutely.
the idea of self plagiarism, I don't see you going to sue yourself over something that you copied. I guess in the context of like different journals or companies suing you or suing each other over something you used twice could be an issue, but
The school is not paying me for my work. It's not their property. It's mine. I'm paying
mhm.
them.
Mhm.
And that I'm what are we at? 51 minutes. I think we should end it there
Yeah.
before I start getting too heated. Um anyways, well thanks for joining us everybody. What you think about the Very Hungry Caterpillar? Do you think we should or should not start a pointless what is it? What's that should I get a bunch of random e-signatures from strangers saying that we should put the Very Hungry Caterpillar in Smash Bros and expect it to work when I propose it to Miyamoto? I don't think I said his name right. I'm gonna shut up now. Got anything to send him off with?
Good call. Um, enjoy the weather, but beyond that, I've got nothing.
Enjoy the weather. That's geographist. People exist where weather is not good right now too.
And they should enjoy
None
it.
of them are listening to whatever we're saying. All right, bye guys.